Hello there, Ramblers, and welcome back to Reese Rambles, my weekly podcast all about the latest comings and goings, movings and shakings, and indeed all the rest of it in the worlds of vintage and retro computing, gaming, and technology. And indeed, not just vintage and retro stuff, also some modern stuff as well. Don't know why I never mentioned that. But anyway, I hope you're all doing well out there. Gloriously warm and sunny weekend here in the UK, and apparently everyone near and dear to me is off doing other stuff all weekend. So I've pretty much got the weekend to sun myself out on the deck. I've got a video to finish. I've got a review that I have kind of fully recorded, done the first rough draft of. That is of this little mini PC here. So if you want to know a bit more about that, do make sure that you are subscribed to the main channel, Control-Alt-Reese. But yeah, things are actually looking up at the moment, which is rather good after the rather long run of cold and miserable weather that we have had. And spring is very much springing outside, blossom on the trees and whatnot. So that's all good. Something positive to look forward to. But speaking of positive things to look forward to, I also have a bit of an update on a story that I talked about last week, which is Myrient, or Myrient, this huge archive of retro game ROMs, I guess, for various different systems. I hadn't heard of it, but apparently it's shutting down, and it's going to be shut down by the end of this month. And basically that was kind of attributed to rising hosting costs due to AI, the usual story, these AI companies buying up all of the RAM and the hard drives and stuff. And also people basically leeching from this site, just downloading stuff directly from it. No, there was no kind of paywall or membership or anything like that. You could just go on there and download this stuff. And the owner of the site ended up paying the price for that, very unfortunately. Quite interesting that the copyright gods didn't rain their wrath down upon them with all of the kind of Nintendo stuff and whatnot on there. But yeah, killed by AI and the cost of living. It's a story that does seem to keep rearing its ugly head just lately. But I speculated when I reported on this last week that it would be great if the community kind of took this upon themselves to kind of back up this entire archive and perhaps make it available as torrents or something like that, something a bit more resilient and something kind of lower cost. Kind of spread the hosting load, if you like. And that is indeed what is happening. So, here's a story on tomshardware.com, 385 terabyte video game archive saved by fans. Myrient has been 100% backed up and validated. Torrents are being generated by our good friend Mark Tyson, published on my birthday, the 15th of March. What a wonderful birthday gift from our good friend, Mark Tyson. Last month, the site's host announced a shutdown due to spiralling costs. A member of the Save Myrient, my pronunciation of this is going to change every single time I say it, but a member of the Save Myrient community has announced that the colossal video games archive has been 100% backed up. This retro gaming resource was on the precipice of collapsing last month after collection admins revealed that insufficient funding, rising costs, and abusive download managers were taking a heavy toll on the operation. Cost concerns were particularly strong with rocketing RAM, SSD, and hard drive prices. It is great to share good news regarding the preservation of classic video games. Redditor and Save Myrient mod, Economist5285, fanfared the success of backup efforts just ahead of the weekend. We've been kicking major ass in the background, getting downloads completed and validated, wrote the mod. We can now announce that the Myrient mirror is now 100% complete. I am doing it on purpose now. As for getting the mirror up and operational, remember the original site doesn't get decommissioned until the end of this month. However, with the 385 terabyte resource now backed up, work is underway, generating torrents and getting them available. Torrents, yes, but another Save Myrient mod has confirmed Torrents is only a temporary solution as of now, with commenters pledging to make sure to seed their file collections. Meanwhile, Economist5285 reassures Myrient fans that things will be back to normal soon, with some resources being taken down temporarily, only to make things ready for the next stage of the plan. More news will come, we are teased, hopefully soon. And there we go, we've got some images of Myrient, I guess. So there we go. There's a bit more speculation about the AI side of things and all of that stuff, but the important thing is that the community have rallied around as wished for and have backed up the entire archive. They're making torrents available. They are talking about this being a kind of a shorter term solution while they find a kind of a more resilient solution, but great, what a fantastic start to the weekend. And yeah, the archiving community, my hat is off to you. Very important stuff for the world of game preservation. Right then, I'm getting my Doom story in early this week. Shout out to the Doom Shrine behind me, my collection of Doom releases and paraphernalia, starting with my original shareware copy from 1995 and working its way all the way up to some Doom Eternal stuff. But crucially, not Doom the Dark Ages, which is the latest installment in the recently rebooted Doom franchise. And I will say, Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal, I enjoyed them very much. I prefer 2016, I will say. I am one of those people. I just think it's got a bit less kind of extra cruft and stuff tacked on top of it. I don't think the extra stuff they added in Eternal really added much. But you know what? It's still a great game, and I don't want to get into an argument about that. If you prefer Eternal, we can still be friends. But one game that I haven't checked out, and I have mentioned this quite a lot, is Doom the Dark Ages, the new one that was released last year. I watched some reviews and things of it. I was actually really looking forward to it. I mean, I bought 2016 and Eternal pretty much. I think I may have even pre-ordered them and played them immediately. But when I started to see some of the early coverage of the Dark Ages, I don't know, I wasn't all that enamoured with the direction that the gameplay took. Now, I think since then, I have kind of warmed to it a bit. I have had some conversations with some people who have played it, and they've said that, yeah, you know what, it is a bit of a departure from kind of the classic Doom, gameplay formula, but actually the stuff that they've added is quite interesting and does kind of shake things up a bit, and it is worth checking out because it is an interesting game. Also, a very good-looking game and a very technically impressive game, as you might expect from id Software and whoever owns them nowadays. Bethesda, isn't it? But, one big reason that a lot of people haven't gotten into Doom the Dark Ages is because it uses Denuvo DRM, Digital Rights Management or Digital Restrictions Management. And we're seeing a lot of PC games being released on Steam with Denuvo built in. And basically what it does is it has these very kind of deep hooks into the operating system itself. And it has been proven in the past when publishers have initially released their games with Denuvo and then removed it later on, that it does have a massively detrimental effect on performance as well, because all of the stuff that the game is doing to make it game has to pass through this extra layer of protection to try to ensure that the game hasn't been pirated. And as mentioned, it is something that publishers have kind of retrospectively gone back and removed from their releases in the past. The story this week is that this has been removed from Doom the Dark Ages. And indeed, when I saw people talking about this, I thought this was an official thing. I thought id Software had, they'd kind of made their, protected their investments and kind of made enough money back from the release in 2025. And they got to a point where they've said, you know what, we don't need Denuvo anymore. We don't need the negative kind of connotations and things that come along with it. So we're going to remove it for the good of the community. Unfortunately, this morning, when I was researching this ramble and actually reading into these stories properly, I discovered that this was not actually the case. This has been cracked by pirates. They have removed Denuvo, and this is actually a bit of a milestone because this is the first 2025 Denuvo game that has had it removed. They still haven't done the right thing and removed it, and that makes me a sad panda. Of course, there's a whole debate to be had about publishers and their rights to protect their investment and kind of make their money back. But there is also, of course, a very real concern about people who are actually paid for the game having, a less than optimal experience because of all of the extra layers of stuff that have been wedged in there. And particularly now there is an unofficial way to remove this, pirates are getting the better user experience, which is never a good thing, but is often the way. Anyway, Doom the Dark Ages, writes Eurogamer, has had its controversial Denuvo DRM removed, software compromised by pirates, making it the first 2025 release to be cracked. Ripped and torn. Very good there, Fran. Fran Ruiz, is that how you say that? And it's a story. Xbox published shooter Doom the Dark Ages has been cracked by anti-DRM pirates. It's been revealed. My goodness, I've forgotten how to read. It's all the excitement about Doom, you see. I get Doom in my head and I get carried away. Let's start again from the top, but let's not do this as a new take because I've already waffled on for 4 minutes and I'd rather not do all of that again. So, Eurogamer writes, Xbox published shooter Doom: The Dark Ages has been cracked by anti-DRM pirates. It's been revealed with a Reddit user who goes by Voices38 announcing the bypassing of its unpopular Denuvo software on the 13th of March. It marks the first game released in 2025 to have its digital rights management software illicitly circumvented so far, with last year's games previously proving particularly resilient to attempts. Until now, DRM, in particular Denuvo, has been rather effective at slowing down attempts from pirates to crack recent games, but the anti-piracy technology has also been super effective at compromising games' PC performance. Coupled with a sense of wider restrictions on owners of legitimately purchased digital media, the result has been a general distrust of the technology. Denuvo is wildly unpopular amongst many, leaving publishers in an awkward position as they seek to protect their interests. And goes on to explain that there are people who actively avoid buying games that come with Denuvo copy protection, purely as a as like a moral stance. Which, to be fair, I don't think I entirely disagree with. Now, one thing that I have been covering on my channel quite a lot in the past, and which does pop up in this new video that I'm working on again at the moment, is Linux gaming and gaming on Bazzite and kind of other SteamOS derived Linux operating systems. And indeed, they use Valve's Proton compatibility layer to run Windows games under Linux, often with better performance than running those games under Windows. And, spoiler alert, there's certainly some aspect of that as well in my latest video. And I thought, actually, obviously there are some types of kind of anti-cheat and copy protection and anti-piracy stuff that hooks directly into the Windows kernel so tightly that there's no way to actually get those games running on Linux. And whenever you mention stuff like Bazzite and SteamOS and stuff, you do get a lot of people coming out of the woodwork in the comments and saying, oh, well, I can't play such and such a game because it uses such and such a copy protection. And until, they find a way to get that to work in SteamOS, it's going to be a non-starter. And I do think that those people actually miss the point, because this is stuff that's kind of directly messing around with your operating system's kernel. And I get the benefits of the anti-cheat stuff for online games. And perhaps there are the benefits for anti-piracy and stuff like that as far as the publishers are concerned. But it's that bothers me. When you look at stuff like these immutable OSs like Bazzite and stuff like that, where the user space software can't interfere with the underlying operating system, I don't know how anyone can argue that the Windows situation and stuff directly interfering with the kernel is actually a good thing. I don't know. I've never understood that argument, I will say. Anyway, it turns out that Denuvo isn't one of those. You can actually play Denuvo protected games on Linux, which is good. Although I'm still not going to be pirating Doom: The Dark Ages. I would like to wait for them to officially remove it so I can play it on my gaming PC, which is indeed running Bazzite. But nice that this is now a thing, and perhaps they will, perhaps id Software will pay attention to this and finally decide to remove it officially themselves. The game has been out for a year now. I imagine the initial rush of sales is over, and of course now there is a pirated option available that does provide a better user experience. It would be in their best interest to remove it on the official release. So do that. Oh dear, this is turning more into Reese rants than Reese rambles this week, isn't it? Dear oh dear. I think we need something a bit more light-hearted, a bit more tongue-in-cheek to perhaps lighten the mood a little. And I have something, and it is also Doom-related, so of course, a rare second shout-out for the Doom Shrine this week. This story is over on timeextension.com by Damien McFerrin, and the headline here, Doom Star says the movie was probably one of the worst films ever made. That's right, we're talking about the Doom movie now, starring The Rock, and the subheading here, the film was an absolute bomb. So, of all the attempts to bring video games to the silver screen, Andrei Barkovac's 2005 adaptation of Doom wouldn't be in my personal top 10 of stinkers. Not when the likes of Alone in the Dark, Monster Hunter, Double Dragon and House of the Dead exist. And when this was being discussed over on my Discord, someone also mentioned Postal, if you remember the Postal movie. I haven't actually seen it. I don't think I've seen Doom, to be fair, which is very strange, considering. Perhaps I need to remedy that over the weekend. But anyway, don't get me wrong, continues Damien. I'm not saying it's a stone-cold classic either, although I still think that FPS sequence is really clever. Of course, it was famous for that first-person sequence. reminiscent of the original games, but it seems that one of its stars, Rosamund Pike, doesn't consider it to be a film she's happy to have on her otherwise impressive CV. Speaking on the How to Fail podcast, Pike really stuck the knife in on the movie, in which she co-starred alongside Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and Carl Urban. And indeed, quoting Rosamund herself here, the film was an absolute bomb. It probably could have ended my career. It was probably one of the worst films ever made. I mean, it was a catastrophe. I don't read the reviews, but you get the sense like you're lucky to have survived that one. But then it wasn't career-ending for The Rock, or me, as it turned out. There you go, not so bad after all. It was probably after that I started to do my research because I didn't know enough about video games. I wasn't the right kind of girl to be in that. I didn't want to be the sex symbol. So it's okay, I guess, to fail at being an action star if to be an action star in those days was to be the absolute bombshell sex symbol. I just wasn't that person. Maybe The Rock was that person in that movie. He is quite a sexy man, after all. Anyway, and so, as the girl in a film like that, if the film is a bomb, you do think, it's because I wasn't hot enough. It's not the total, obviously, the failure of the film, but if loads of guys say that the film is... your part in it is to play your character but also look hot. And I don't think I got that or took that seriously or worked out for the gym body that a better female action star would have done. Also, nobody helped me. Nobody said, nowadays, I'm sure an actress cast in that would have a personal trainer. There would be a conversation about, you playing Lara Croft? This is how she should look. Okay. There you go. Anyway, the story continues. Doom made $58.7 million on a budget rumoured to be between 60 and 70 million and was followed in 2019 by the direct-to-video Doom Annihilation. I wasn't even aware that was a thing. I'm definitely going to have to find that. 2019, Doom Annihilation. It's fair to say then that id Software's famous first-person shooter hasn't had the same fortunes as, say, Resident Evil or Sonic when it comes to box office clout. Yeah, Sonic, that was surprisingly good, wasn't it, the Sonic movie? Thankfully, Pike's career doesn't seem to have been negatively impacted by the film. She would go on to land roles in productions such as Johnny English Reborn, Jack Reacher, The World's End, and Saltburn, and would earn a nomination for the Academy Award for Best Actress for her role in David Fincher's Gone Girl. She also won awards for her contributions to I Care a Lot and the TV series State of the Union. Apparently Rosamund Pike, who starred in the original Doom movie, said that it wasn't a very good movie and it was her job to look sexy, and she didn't think that she did because she didn't spend enough time at the gym, and nowadays she would do things differently, and apparently it was bad enough that it should have ended her career, but it didn't. So, anyway, I told you it was a bit more light-hearted and a bit more tongue-in-cheek, that story. I hope that's useful information to somebody out there. So, a bit of a funny observation about this next story just before we dive into it. Quite recently, I was involved in a conversation with a child. That's right, an actual live human child. I do tend to avoid them whenever I can, but this one was kind of one of the more agreeable ones, which is always good. And the subject, I mean, this kid would have been, about 8 years old, something like that? 8, 9, 10 years old? I don't know. I'm terrible with this kind of stuff. But the subject of games consoles was raised because he had a Nintendo Switch. And it was like, oh, you're a Nintendo fan, eh? And the subject that came up was the Wii, the Nintendo Wii. And he thought it was the funniest thing ever. He was laughing his face off, and he was like, what? No, surely Nintendo didn't make a console called the Wii. And I instantly felt about 100 years old, because surely kids have all heard of the Nintendo Wii. I mean, it was a legendary piece of hardware, with the motion controls and stuff. It was absolutely massive at the time. Even old people were, playing Wii bowling in their retirement homes and stuff. But there you go. There is now a whole generation of people walking around and talking and holding conversations with people who haven't even heard of it because they weren't even born at the time. Anyway, this all ties in rather nicely to an announcement from GameStop. Not about the Wii, but actually about the Wii's successor, if you want to feel even older, the WiiU, among some other consoles. So, this is GameStop, and a bit of a tongue-in-cheek announcement again, but GameStop declares PS3, Xbox 360 and Wii U officially retro consoles. So if you want a definition of retro, and I know there is always this endless ongoing debate about retro versus vintage and where's the cutoff point and what is the exact definition of each, and it always ends up leading to a whole big argument which doesn't really matter and I don't really care about. Retro is stuff that is kind of in the style of old stuff. Vintage is stuff that is actually old. What is retro? What is vintage? Depends what you grow up with. That's pretty much all there is to it. in my opinion. I'm sure there are plenty of people out there who think that I'm wrong. Anyway, the GameStop declares a PS3, Xbox 360 and Wii U officially retro consoles. GameStop today issued an official declaration that the Sony PlayStation 3, Xbox 360 and Nintendo Wii U are, for all practical purposes, now officially retro consoles. The ruling was reached following careful analysis of multiple indicators, including the presence of component cables, the lack of Fortnite, and the realisation that they launched when George W. Bush was still president. Under GameStop's retro classification standard, the aforementioned systems will now join the ranks of other beloved legacy hardware, there's a typo in there, in the retro category, such as the Sega Saturn and the Nintendo DS. In accordance with this designation, GameStop will run a retro trade-in bonus offer now through March the 21st. So that will have expired probably by the time you're listening to this. So yeah, they're not paying me to announce this. I just thought it was amusing. Customers who bring in Wii U, Xbox 360, PlayStation 3 or any older consoles, games or accessories will be awarded with an additional 10% in trade credit. Anyway, they will also accept defective retro consoles as trade-ins, apparently, if you own any defective retro consoles. Apparently they need to power on, so I'm not sure if that includes stuff like the Xbox 360 Red Ring of Death and stuff like that. But there is a URL on the bottom of this announcement. This was posted as an image, so I had to type it in manually, like the good old days. I don't know, making me do work, GameStop. But I thought this was interesting because they do have a list of the retro consoles under this category called Old But Still Cool that they will actually sell games for. So we've got stuff like the Nintendo Entertainment System, the NES or the NES if you like, the Super Nintendo, the N64, the GameCube, DS, 3DS, the Wii, the Wii U, recently added of course, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, PlayStation 2, 3, PSP, Vita, the Saturn, the Genesis, or the Mega Drive if you prefer, the Dreamcast, the Xbox, and the 360. Now, of course, this generation of consoles, the 360 and the PS3 specifically, were they are still somewhat supported online. I think I saw that Sony had actually released a firmware update for the PS3 in the past week or so. And yeah, they were very much thoroughly HD consoles. And I know the very first generation of 360s had component rather than HDMI, but then they did rectify that pretty quickly, I think. But for all intents and purposes, HD consoles and also online consoles with their own online storefronts and things, downloadable games, DLC for games, online patches and that kind of thing, which of course the slightly earlier generations like the original Xbox had dabbled with. I guess the original Wii did as well, actually. That was, although very much not an HD console, but it did have the whole virtual console thing going on there. But yeah, retro. So we are now at the point where consoles from the HD and broadband era with their own online storefronts and things are now being classified as retro, where I think previously people would have argued that it would be your kind of strictly offline CD, DVD, standard definition cartridge-based consoles. Time marches on in that way that it does, but yeah, I can't say that I actually disagree with this. I'm just getting old. I mean, I turned 42 the other day, believe it or not. But that is that. Take it from GameStop, who apparently are an authority on this subject. The Wii U, the Xbox 360 and the PS3 are now officially retro, and I will have no word against that, because it's official. A story now which comes with a rather large caveat. This story is over on notebookcheck.net, and this actually popped up on my Discord server earlier this week, and there was some discussion around this. So I thought I'd talk about it in this week's Ramble. But there is a very, very notable omission in this story, and something that I think is very important indeed, and something that will be discussed down in the comments, I think, quite extensively if I don't mention it. I mean, it's going to be discussed now. I am mentioning it anyway. And to be honest, a lot of people would say, don't touch this story at all. Don't give it any kind of publicity. But it's not something I've really talked about a lot in the past. So I thought we would take this moment to discuss this particular company and this particular individual. Now, this isn't a drama channel. I don't like to court controversy here, but it is what it is, and this is a rather big name that is making some quite big names in the retro world. And indeed, it is a name that popped up on the GameStop website when I was scrolling through, looking at my previous story, and I decided not to acknowledge it. So, let's begin. Palmer Luckey, ModRetro. That's right. And this story is about him seeking a $1 billion valuation for ModRetro. And apparently they are gearing up to release a new console called the M64, which is a FPGA-based N64. Now, of course, this company is probably best known for its Game Boy clone, which was called the Chromatic. Indeed, thank you to Raheem, who wrote this story, for including that information. And it was a very nice machined solid metal case and a really nice kind of upgrade to the Game Boy. I saw a lot of YouTube channels kind of covering this and giving it some publicity, completely and utterly without questioning anything or kind of talking a bit more about the people behind it. And it's a bit of an uncomfortable conversation to get into. And I guess that's why Raheem here on Notebook Check decided not to mention any of this stuff at all. And that's why I'm going to talk about it. So Palmer Luckey is the founder of ModRetro, and he actually got his start in the tech world as the founder of the Oculus VR. And of course, he was the designer of the Oculus Rift, one of the kind of first big, hugely successful of the kind of current generation of virtual reality headsets. And of course, that was acquired by Facebook, and they actually went on to fire him. And he then founded a military contractor company, and that's where the controversy comes from. So, his company, Anduril Industries, if you just scroll down here, makes autonomous weapons and autonomous drones and, things that kind of use his knowledge of technology and AI, I guess, and virtual reality and stuff to kill a lot of people. And he has made an awful lot of money out of that business. And he is now making reproduction retro, specifically Nintendo consoles, to sell to this community. And for some reason, people don't seem to talk about this other kind of aspect of his personality. He's also a huge Donald Trump fan and supporter, and a huge donor to the Republican Party, if that matters to you. And he's also a collector of military vehicles, which, to be honest, isn't problematic in its own right. But quite the character in the world of retro. I can see the downvotes coming in as I speak, but I have to talk about this. I suppose I don't have to talk about it, but yeah, interesting that he is seeking a $1 billion valuation for ModRetro. Again, this is something that a lot of people will be familiar with. They will have seen the coverage of the Chromatic and stuff. But it does seem like a very, very high valuation indeed. So, bearing in mind all of the stuff that I've just told you, and the fact that Raheem at Notebook Check didn't mention it, Palmer Luckey, writes Raheem, the founder of Oculus, who sold his VR startup to Facebook for $2 billion and has since pivoted to run the defense tech juggernaut Anduril, is stepping up his retro gaming side hustle, ModRetro, which could result in a massive payday for the entrepreneur. According to the Financial Times, Palmer Luckey, who founded ModRetro in 2023, is in early talks to raise $1 billion in funding, a step up from the $19 million the retro handheld company has raised so far. Yeah, that's quite a lot more than $19 million, isn't it? Coinciding with this development, the company is preparing to launch its second product, a retro gaming console known as the M64, in spring 2026. High-volume production is reportedly underway, as hands-on demos of the console are already appearing at retailers like GameStop in New York. ModRetro initially garnered widespread attention with its Game Boy-inspired retro handheld, the Chromatic, which flew off store shelves and was praised for its robust, solid design. Now, ModRetro is entering the retro home console market by recreating the Nintendo 64 with modern hardware. And then this goes on to be a bit of a sales pitch for the M64. I will mention that there are other FPGA-based N64 clones available out there, so perhaps you'd like to spend your money on one of those instead. Apparently it's going to undercut the analog one, which of course is already out, although pretty much impossible to get hold of. I have seen some good reviews of that. It's going to be $20 less than that. So that is that. It doesn't talk much more or at all, really, about the reasoning for this valuation. I think it sounds quite absurd, to be honest, and also I would very much hesitate to buy anything from this company. But I need to cover it because it's quite big news in the retro world. And shall we move on? If you're a regular here, you will no doubt remember that I am somewhat of an Xbox fan, or at least I was. I do like to keep in touch with that world and at least keep an eye on what's going on, but I actually kind of fell out of it a bit after the Xbox 360. I had the original, I had the Crystal. All of my friends moved on from the Dreamcast to the Xbox, and I was a bit of a late bloomer, but when the Crystal came out, I just couldn't resist it. Of course, that wonderful transparent plastic case. And then when the 360 came out, I bought that on launch, and I very dearly loved those two consoles. But the next one, the Xbox One, when that was released, just didn't really do it for me for some reason. I decided to kind of move back to the world of PC gaming after that, and that suited me just fine. And that was kind of the end of my Xbox adventure. And of course, to be honest, the world of PC gaming and Xbox gaming have been much of a muchness since then. I think it's fair to say, of course, there have been some exclusives that have released purely on the Xbox and not the PC. Not many, I don't think, in the grand scheme of things, and I think it is probably more worth owning a PC. And I think Microsoft have also themselves come to that realisation. But the Xbox One was kind of considered to be the first sort of big flop, really, in the Xbox world. After the very strong start with the OG Xbox console and then the 360, people were expecting really big things of the Xbox One, and it didn't really seem to come to fruition. I think, like I say, you know, the PlayStation, obviously the PS4 was a very strong console, kind of coming into its own. PC as well, and it just didn't really seem worth owning one, and the market at large kind of seemed to agree with that, and that's how history seems to have remembered that console. But one thing that Microsoft did very much get right with the Xbox One, depending on your opinion, of course, and this does go against a lot of the stuff that I do say here, but one thing that they did get right was the copy protection, or copy protection isn't quite the right word, but you know what I mean, the security on that console, because the original Xbox has been blown wide open. Of course, mod chips and things were available for that at the time. You could stick a massive hard drive in there and rip a load of games to it. You could, get HD video output and all sorts of stuff that Microsoft never intended. Basically on games that didn't officially support it, that kind of thing, patched for different regions and stuff like that. The 360, of course, there's the reset glitch hack and a few others as well. Came along a little bit later, but it did get cracked in the end. And of course, custom dashboards and things available for that, loading it up with games and launching those. But the Xbox One has proven to be a very tough nut to crack, especially considering it's been on the market for 12 years now. And this week there has been a lot of coverage because there is now finally a crack available for this console. And for any fans out there of the Xbox One, this should hopefully be quite interesting news. And perhaps people like me who completely missed out on it at the time, this might be an opportunity to jump on one and finally check it out. Gives me an excuse to kind of play with it, I guess. Maybe. I don't know. I've got a PS3 to play with before I get onto anything like that, just as a bit of a spoiler for an upcoming video. Anyway, this post over on X here, this tweet, I need to get out of the habit of calling it Twitter and tweets because it does seem to offend some people. But anyway, this thing over here on this website by IdleSloth84 does kind of sum up the situation. The Xbox One has finally been hacked. After 12 years, it was thought to be unhackable. Marcus Gaziladin talks at Reverse 2026 about the Xbox One's unhackable security. A decade-long unhacked streak comes to an end due to a hardware glitch on the boot ROM. Bypass the MPU jails, randomized stores, eFuse and ECC protections, and the crypto chain. Achieve PC hijack, supervisor execution, full use of eFuse/keydub, decrypted stages, SP12 2BL firmware, I don't know what any of this stuff means, unpatchable on original FAT models. Game preservation must be done by others. He no longer plays games and does not intend to pirate them, but this hack allows for full decryption of games, apps and other content. So, this has completely blown the console wide open, is the long and short of this. Our good friend Idle Sloth goes on to say repairs are now possible, including unbricking NANDs, fixing firmware and decouple repaired disk drives, e.g. swaps for emulation, DIY solutions for eMMC failures which can extend console life. So this also, as is often the case with a lot of these hacks and things, does help to save a lot of this stuff from going into landfill, which is very much a positive. Especially considering they're not releasing new games for these consoles now, and they haven't for quite a few years now, so I think the piracy argument is very much a moot point. Only minimal setup is needed. There are custom tools for the power traces, I2C diagnostics, eFuse reads, GPIO taps, glitch via crowbar voltage on North Bridge rail. So it looks like I need to tap into the power side of things on the North Bridge chip, and that's how you basically glitch this thing out into booting this custom firmware. So 3 to 4 wires, cap removal, and used AI for boot ROM emulation to simulate attacks. The glitch rate is approximately 1 in a million during days-long campaigns. And this also goes on to say that this is limited to the original 2013 models. Later consoles have been hardened further. So looks like there is still some work to do on this, and it looks like it's not... I was going to say it's not reliable, but it just sounds like it just takes quite a while, as was the case with the original reset glitch hack and stuff with the Xbox 360, of course, and that improved quite a lot, particularly quite recently. There have been some big strides in that, and that will be the case with this as well as time goes on. I have also spotted that MVG has covered this. Now, I think that MVG, a modern vintage gamer, of course, Dimitris, I think that his coverage of stuff like this is always excellent. Stuff to do with emulators and homebrew software and the kind of stuff that makes all of that possible in the background, because he does very much have a background in that world. Of course, he was responsible for the development of MAME and some emulators and stuff on the OG Xbox, and he then went to kind of work in the industry. Of course, he worked famously for Night Dive Games for quite a while, using that experience for perhaps more commercial purposes. But I haven't watched this video yet, so I'm going to recommend it, and I am going to link it down below. And I'm going to say that you go, I'm going to say that you do go and watch it. But yeah, I haven't actually watched it yet. It's been on my watch later list for the past few days. I just haven't gotten around to it. But if you want a video version that's going to sum this up, I presume, in at least some detail, and perhaps give some kind of insider information on how it all works, I will recommend this video that I haven't watched. Hey, you can't say that I'm not honest. So let's take a moment now to talk about one of my other favourite topics, and that is Nintendo's handheld consoles. Of course, I started with the original Game Boy all the way back in the day, and have owned quite a few of those consoles ever since. Perhaps my favourite being the DS. I was a really big fan of my DS Lite. I enjoyed that console a lot. And of course the 3DS and everything else that goes with it as well. And one of the features on the 3DS, which I thought was very, very cool back in the day, was something called StreetPass, which allowed you to... basically, you'd have your avatar set up on there, your your little character, and if you passed by people in the street, it would use like a low-power Wi-Fi thing that you could enable to basically your characters could become friends, and they would visit each other's consoles. And then at the end of the day, you could open up this app called the Me Plaza, and you could check out all of the characters that your Me had met over the course of the day. Probably makes a lot more sense somewhere like Japan. I mean, I don't want to kind of generalise and stereotype people, but on the packed metro systems of Japan, I'm pretty sure you would meet quite a lot of people who would have their 3DS with them back in the day. And maybe, I guess, if you lived in a big city like London or something, it would have been a thing. But where I live, where the population density is much lower, and the population of gamers is much lower, unfortunately didn't really kind of reach its full potential as far as I was kind of personally concerned. But it was a thing. And one thing that I have covered quite recently are these Android-based handhelds, these dual-screen handhelds, which are being kind of... touted as a very good solution for DS emulation, of course, because they have the dual screens. But they don't have the StreetPass function. Of course, that was a function of the kind of underlying operating system, and to have that constantly running in the background and hooked into all of the Android kind of Wi-Fi stuff would have been a bit complicated and, a bit convoluted. So somebody has developed a way to do this natively on these Android-based systems. But, as you might expect, in this day and age of AI slop, there is a catch. Claude has been involved. And there's also another related story that I'm going to talk about in a second as well. But we're going to head back to timeextension.com for the second time this week. They're certainly getting their shout-outs in this week, aren't they? And this is a story from Damien McFerrin again. If that bothers you, I understand. Android devices get a Nintendo StreetPass successor, but of course there's a catch. I used AI to write the code faster. That's a quote from the developer. And this talks a little bit about what StreetPass is all about, which, of course, I have just covered, so I won't go over that again. But there are ways to keep StreetPass Dream alive on 3DS. But if you picked up a shiny new Android handheld for dual-screen gaming, writes Damien, you might be interested to learn that a successor app is being developed that replicates StreetPass on non-Nintendo hardware. As noted by Android Authority, Thunderpass draws inspiration. That's a good name, isn't it? Thunderpass, I like that. Draws inspiration from StreetPass and introduces its own features. Whenever another Thunderpasser is nearby, your phones silently find each other over Bluetooth, shake hands with end-to-end encryption, swap profile cards, and go back to sleep, says the project's GitHub. Of course, this isn't limited to those dual-screen DS emulation devices. You could run it on any Android device if you like. But anyway, back to the story. No tapping, no accounts, no internet, just the same low-key magic rebuilt from scratch with modern cryptography and a healthy respect for your privacy. And there is a bit of a screenshot of what it looks like here. So you can exchange profiles with other users, you can earn badges, you can gain vaults, the in-app currency that lets you purchase upgrades, and it's all looking very slick indeed. And the focus on privacy and security is to be applauded. But the catch here is that Thunderpass has been vibe coded, which means AI has played a big role in its creation. Gotta love vibe coding. To be fair to the author, the developer behind the app, they've been very open about this. So I guess at least that's something. I work full-time. Thunderpass gets whatever hours are left after that. Nights, weekends, the occasional lunch break. I do not have the luxury of spending 3 months polishing a single feature from scratch, so I use AI to write code faster. That is the honest truth. But here is what AI did not do. AI did not decide that this app should exist. I've tailored each part of it to bring StreetPass back for Android. The name, the yellow lightning bolt, make the LED flash yellow on encounter, or decide that privacy mode should still show your name and avatar to strangers but hide the parts that could be used to track you. Every encryption method to keep your safety, and of course 100 steps should equal 1 volt, as a nod to the 3DS Play Coin system. Of course, I forgot about that, the pedometer. On the 3DS. Every one of those choices was mine. Every screen, every button, every permission, every colour, every behaviour. I thought about it, argued with myself about it, tested it on my own devices, and made a call. The AI wrote the code that implemented those calls. I reviewed every line, caught the bugs, pushed back when something felt wrong, and put my name on the result. This is not AI made an app and I uploaded it. This is me building something I genuinely wanted to exist, using every tool available to me, including AI, because time is finite and I refuse to let that stop me. If that bothers you, I understand. If it does not, welcome. I hope you enjoy it as much as I enjoyed making it. So there you go, a lot to take in there from the author of the app, who has a name that I'm not going to attempt to pronounce here. No, I did say I wasn't going to attempt to pronounce it, wasn't I? But yeah, very open about the fact that he has used AI to develop this, but apparently developing it feature by feature and telling the AI, please make it do this now, please make it do that now, okay, now make it do this, is apparently one step above saying, hey, Claude, make a clone of Nintendo StreetPass for Android. For some reason, I don't know, that's the argument here. And I also mentioned that there was a related story as well, just to look out for. There is a native PC port of Animal Crossing, the Nintendo GameCube game. I never played the GameCube original. I have played, what's the new one that was released on the Switch a couple of years ago? I say a couple of years ago. I think it was like 5 years ago now. But I did play that quite a bit, actually, and quite enjoyed it. But I never played the version on the GameCube. But there is a PC port which is based on a decompilation / reverse engineering of the GameCube original from 2001, it says here, in Japan. And that has also been AI coded by Claude. Yeah, this is increasingly becoming a thing, and a thing that's difficult to avoid. But again, at least these developers are at least acknowledging this and making that information available should people choose to make a choice. And this being a very big talking point in the retro gaming world, of course, I couldn't let it pass me by. But anyway, Damien writes again, AI is bleeding into practically every aspect of human life these days, from deepfake scams to your favourite emulation handheld being discontinued. I must have missed that story. Oh, that's Retroid because of the RAM prices, yes. The realm of programming and development is perhaps where the touch of AI is felt most keenly, with AI tools allowing small teams to churn out code faster. However, there are still questions about whether the code is better than what a human could produce, and often real people have to dig into the code to unpick mistakes AI has made. Of course, doesn't even touch on the fact that AI tools are often trained on people's work without permission or remuneration. And of course, there is also the environmental kind of side of it as well. The energy consumption, the water consumption, they are my words, not Damien's, but very important to point out, I think, when discussing this topic. Given that many people in many industries feel threatened by the arrival of AI, and with good reason, it's layoff season thanks to the new technology, finding that an interesting video game project has leveraged AI is usually enough to put a lot of people off it. That's unfortunately what has happened with the new native PC port of Animal Crossing, which has been built on the AC Decomp project. So we just have some tweets here, some posts on x.com, whatever you want to call them. So the game's original C code runs natively on x86 with a custom translation layer replacing the GameCube's GX graphics API with OpenGL 3.3, says the port's GitHub page. The page also notes that AI tools such as Claude were used in this project, and it's that disclaimer which has put some people off the whole venture. And there is some talk here of some other projects. The Saturn emulator, Yaba Sanshiro, basically they're using AI to become more efficient. And again, this StreetPass thing, Thunderpass, also mentions that as well. Even the slightest hint that a project has relied on AI is enough to poison the well for a growing number of people. Earlier this week, translator Hilltop posted a statement addressing the use of AI in the world of fan-made localizations, saying, "It does not save time or offer anything of value if every single line needs to be double-checked and retranslated, and it reduces the optics of their job to that of text janitor. Real translators have been kicked so hard by AI that you should not blame them for not picking up the sloppy seconds of a ChatGPT translation patch." There was, I was going to mention something else there as well, and I've completely forgotten what it was. But recent stories about AI stuff, AI vibe-coded stuff, slop-coded stuff, direct threat to people's jobs, all of these layoffs happening in the development industry, the power consumption, the water consumption, the ethical concerns about it stealing people's code, the quality concerns about people actually vibe coding this stuff and not knowing what they're doing and not checking the actual output, and security concerns and everything else that goes along with it. It's an absolute minefield. And I must admit, when I saw that there was a native PC port of Animal Crossing, and of course it's based on the one that I haven't played, and that for all intents and purposes, what I have heard in reviews and stuff of this, other than the AI aspect of it, is people speaking very highly of it, saying that it runs very, very well indeed. It's a really nice, well-polished port, almost, it could almost be kind of an official first-party thing. But then people don't want to touch it because of the way that it has been built. And I got to say, there's a lot of kind of merit in that argument, I will say, even though I have in the past dabbled myself with these tools. I am a software developer in my day job. I think it is important that I do keep up to date and at least see how this stuff works if it is a direct threat to my existence, and that's kind of my experience of it. So there we go, AI again coming up in this week's Ramble. We have the StreetPass successor, Thunderpass, which sounds like a really cool project and a load of fun, but a load of people are not going to be using it because of the way that it has been made. And the same again for Animal Crossing. Perhaps a bit more interesting because this is based on a decompilation, and I do enjoy seeing these old games being decompiled and then kind of recompiled for new platforms. By far the best way to get pretty much a 100% authentic port of that game. But these tools have been used in the creation of this as well. So if that matters to you, and perhaps it should, another 2 projects to be wary of. And that, my dearest Ramblers, brings us around rather neatly to my regular Video of the Week feature, wherein I feature a video, or indeed videos, that I have watched here on the old YouTubes in the past week that have entertained, enlightened, educated, or otherwise improved my life in some small way. Quite often they are retro and vintage computing, gaming and technology related. Quite often they aren't. Often there's one, and often there's more than one. And this week, I haven't really been watching any YouTube at all. I've been through my watch history, And it's all music videos this week, which is quite common for me, but not a lot of tech stuff at all. But I do have a rather long video to recommend to you, and it is a very, very good one. It is a channel that does pop up quite a lot in my video of the week feature, so I do apologise if you have subscribed to this guy off the back of this and you've already seen this. But for those of you who haven't, or perhaps this hasn't come up on your radar because it is a longer video and it doesn't seem to be being pushed to people's YouTube homepages by the algorithm, which is a big shame, I want to draw your attention to this. I also have a bit of a bonus video for you as well. Not sure what you're going to make of this. I enjoyed it quite a lot. But anyway, the first one here is this interview with Francois Lyonnais, who of course was the developer of STOS and Amos. And you may be familiar with those basic programming tools on the Amiga and the Atari ST. Of course, I dabbled with STOS quite a lot back in the day. And this is an interview which is being conducted by Rob Smith of Rob Smith Dev fame. I've talked about him quite a lot in the past and his rather interesting contraptions that he creates on his channel, his disco floppy disk cleaning machine and stuff like that, and his rotating, levitating boing ball. A guy who's far too smart than anyone has, far smarter than anyone has any right to be. And I guess the same can also be said for Keith as well, of course, with his rather fantastic, of course he has a channel called Yawning Angel, his rather fantastic channel all about Amos development. And he basically goes through, he has this whole series so you can follow along at home and you can write some games using Amos Basic on the Amiga. Highly, highly recommend that channel if you want to go and check it out off the back of this video. But this is a rather nice chat with the creator of that tool. And a bit of an industry legend, I think. I'm pretty sure a lot of us got into our careers of writing code and being software developers because of this man, Francois Lyonnais, and his tools Amos and STOS. He created another one as well, which was on the thumbnail, and I very foolishly clicked play on this. Click and Play. Yes, of course, it was Click and Play, the other one that he did. Of course, he's done quite a lot of other stuff as well in the industry, and they do touch on some of that in the interview. Really lovely chap, really, really friendly, and very knowledgeable as well, as are indeed the two interviewers here. So please do go and give this a watch. It's really interesting. So it's an hour and 8 minutes long. So yeah, you could stick this on if you've got YouTube Premium, as I have. You could stick it on background play on your phone and give it a listen as you're going about your business, or put it on your TV and have it on in the background, or whatever. However you watch these longer videos. It is very well edited. It does have some good kind of clips and photos and visual aids and things as well included. So if you want to sit down and actually give it a proper watch, that's also very worthwhile. Anyway, that is that. He taught a generation to code. Meet the legend, Francois Lyonnais. And that is an hour and 8 minutes and 53 seconds, as mentioned, with good old Rob Smith Dev and Yawning Angel, two very good friends of mine, but that is not the only reason I'm recommending this. It is a really fascinating chat. And that is that. The second video I have for you is very different indeed. And I don't know if I dare click play on this because of the copyright situation and how I seem to be getting hit with these things every single week just for recommending people's videos. But this has been doing the rounds on social media. Let's just hit play on this. You may have come across this if you follow me on social media, or if you're a member of my Discord server. I will have already shared this in the past week. I love this. This is this band from Quebec called Angine de Poitrine, and everyone's talking about them at the moment. I know it's this mainstream normie Instagram Reels, TikTok stuff, but because they look very, very weird and they make very, very weird music, they seem to have caught the whole of the internet's attention, and quite rightly so. Even Rick Beato has done a reaction video to this. Of course, the absolute giant of music YouTubing that he is. You may know that I'm a musician. I think that's a bit of a stretch. I was in a band for a while and I do attempt to play instruments, but yeah, so this is all sorts of weird looping pedal stuff going on. You've got these microtonal guitars. It's got this double neck bass and guitar instrument. So basically microtonal, if you're not a music person, means that it has a load of extra notes that a standard guitar doesn't have. It's probably the easiest way, and they are between the normal notes that you will have heard before. So very weird and kind of alien sounding sounds coming from this thing. But most importantly, unlike a lot of this kind of math rock or experimental music, it is actually really, really catchy and actually very easy to listen to. and not just the kind of thing that music nerds enjoy. And I think that, coupled with the rather weird costumes and the whole lore and kind of stuff around these guys, is what's really caught people's attention. And I've watched this video quite a few times now. It's 27 minutes 53 long. It's a live set on KEXP, and this is entirely live as well. When you actually listen to some of this music, it's all layered up using loop pedals and stuff like that. So, got the guitarist / bassist here playing both instruments, recording both instruments, playing them back in real time, looping it, then playing over it, then switching to other loops, then switching back. And it's all got this... It's very clever. It's very clever, and it works, and it sounds good. And they're a complete and utter pair of weirdos as well. So I like it. Very joyful, very fun. More of what the internet needs, in this day and age. So they're my two videos of the week. We have that interview with the creator of Stos, Amos, and Click and Play from our good friends Rob Smith and Keith from Yawning Angel. And also this live set of Angine de Poitrine, this rather weird musical duo from Canada. And I'm a bit obsessed with them at the moment, as are a lot of people. So that is that. There is also another thing that I wanted to mention. I've already done 2 Doom stories this week, and I had a third one come in as well. And I was going to save this for next week, but actually I think I want to follow this one and see how this develops. So this is just a post by Niels Lean here over on Blue Sky. I need to follow this guy. There we go. And this is Doom, fully rendered in CSS. So it is a video, I guess. So if you want to include that in a video of the week, I guess we can do. So every surface is a div that has a background image with a clipping path and 3D transforms applied. Of course, CSS does not have a movable camera, so we rotate and translate the scene around the user. I've been a web developer for 20 plus years now, among many other things, and even centering a div vertically in CSS has been somewhat of a challenge, at least until some kind of more recent tools came along. So creating Doom, or at least something that resembles Doom, is rather ridiculous and rather impressive. So I'm very, very impressed with this. Unfortunately, there isn't a way that I can see that you can actually go and check this out and run it for yourself in a web browser. I'm not sure if you can actually control this and kind of freely move around, or if it's just like a kind of predefined path that it follows. But I thought it was very, very clever indeed. The actual elements of the web, of the websites that we look at and browse every single day, abused and misused to create Doom. Not even any of the kind of 3D, rendered stuff that is included in, JavaScript and CSS and stuff nowadays, but your basic rotates and transforms and textured divs. I think it's really clever stuff. So hopefully something more will come of this. There will be some more work on it. I am now following the creator of this, and if there are any more developments, I will let you know, particularly if we can actually go and play it and have a wander around for ourselves and inspect it using the browser's dev tools and stuff, because I think it would be really interesting to see how this actually works from the point of view of someone who works with this kind of stuff every day. But there you go, that is that. So thank you ever so much for joining me for this week's Ramble. I'd just like to finally say a big thank you to my Discord community, and specifically I'd like to give a bit of a shout out this week to Technic, Naoki, Katrina, Steve's Tech Shed, Gravitone, and our good friend Manimo again. Thank you ever so much for all of your submissions and your conversations around those submissions. I know there were a lot of other people involved as well. I saw that DOSFox, my good friend, posted something about a candle-powered Game Boy, a video, but I haven't watched that, so I'm going to save that for a potential video of the week next week, I think. But thank you, DOSFox, for submitting that. I haven't forgotten about you. And finally, one more thing to mention before we wrap this up. I am again going to be on This Week in Retro. I dropped a pretty big hint at the end of last week's Ramble. That goes out at 10 a.m. UK time on a Saturday morning. So I know a lot of people like to wake up with me on a Saturday and then go on to listen to Dave and all of his buddies on This Week in Retro. Absolutely fantastic podcast. I have been on it a few times before, and they are good personal friends of mine as well. I am on as a guest. You may remember I did do a bit of a stint as a co-presenter at one point when Neil was off on paternity leave. But I am on very much as a guest, so I do basically just chip in a few times with my thoughts on some of their stories and things. But very, very professional production. Nothing at all like Reese Rambles. So if you want to go and check that out, that should be released, as mentioned, at 10 a.m. Saturday morning. But as for Reese Rambles, this goes out on my second YouTube channel, youtube.com/Reese Rambles, in video form. Also goes out in audio form on all of the podcast platforms, predominantly Spotify. And this is released every Friday, UK time, at 2 minutes to midnight. And that's pretty much all you need to know about Reese Rambles. So thank you ever so much for joining me. I think we have a rather warm and sunny weekend to look forward to. I am actually heading down to London on Saturday by the time you are listening to this, because Ashens, the British YouTuber, has a new film coming out that he has been working on. Of course, you may know him from the Polybius Heist and the Game Child one. In fact, I actually have a Game Child on somewhere on my backdrop here as a bit of an homage to that. But yeah, I have been invited to go to a screening of his upcoming horror film, Don't Look Back, which looks really, really interesting. Horror's not usually my kind of thing, but apparently this is quite nerdy and quite clever and has some quite interesting twists and things to it. So also a bit of a chance to hobnob, I guess, with some other people in the community. So if you are indeed one of those people, you'll probably see me down there on Saturday. Maybe we can go out for a bit of a pint or something, and I find a nice pub garden if the weather is looking good. But that's all I have for you for this week's Ramble once more, so thank you ever so much again for joining me. Look forward to that review coming up hopefully very soon on my main channel, Control-Alt-Reese. I need to go and have some lunch now. My chair's making all sorts of weird creaky noises, and quite frankly, I've had enough. I want to get back out in the sun, get this edited, get it uploaded, and get on with my weekend. So thanks again, and bye.